Welcome to SEO Conspiracy.com. Today, I have the huge pleasure to welcome back the one and only. He's an OG, SEO OG. And what are the odds that a Frenchman studying in America who got into SEO in 2004, what is the common link between one of the biggest star in this industry and me and SEO Conspiracy? Well, let's find out. And today we are talking about how we can get SEO legit, or is it legit already compared to the whole ecosystem in digital marketing, and how is the perception from the general public towards SEO. Please welcome Monsieur Chris Boggs, live from Saratoga Springs, New York, where I went to college, and where you live, Mr. Chris. How is everything upstate New York?
It's doing well. We're starting to get into our mini spring. It seems the last couple of years there's been no real spring. It's gone right from winter to summer. So finally, it looks like, no more snow in the forecast, and people are happy. Soccer is being played. There's a really vibrant adult soccer community here. So I got a really good, we went outdoors for the first time yesterday, all winter. So it was nice. I didn't break my ankles. So it was good.
You had an epic winter. I remember one very epic winter in Saratoga Springs. Which it was 91 maybe? No, 92 or 93. One of those years. 192, maybe 92. When it starts to get cold and snow up there, it's no joke. It's for real. It's like Canada.
It's legit.
Yep. So, legit. Is SEO legit? Why do we scare everyone? Why in the 451-page report, DOJ report, when they talk about Google, they talk about crawling, indexing, and supposedly Google controls the world. Well, guess what? We control Google. And nobody knows about us. What is us is SEO. Even within the whole digital marketing industry, we kind of scare everyone, quote unquote, scare. And the SEO industry by itself, it's only, let's say, well, except for the OGs like you who started really early, but let's say it's about 20 years old. And it's still no standards, no nothing, still freestyle. Everybody's freestyling. Whatever is not, if it's not illegal, it's allowed, basically. That's how we see it. And you were going to take, because let's remind ourselves that when I say you're an OG, it's really no joke. You're part of the first pack of SEO, the whole Danny Sullivan crew. How many of you were, you were part of the crew that were asked by Google to come and explain to them how the whole thing worked, right?
Oh, yeah. I went once. There was a few of us SEOs that got that opportunity in the early years, kind of attached to the SES San Jose and the Google dance. As we talked about in our last video, it was kind of a cool opportunity. And Google continues in many ways to reach out to the community for feedback like that. But it's definitely evolved from the way they used to do it under Matt Cutts' tenure, as it were.
From day one to today, going back, did you have a feeling that you were into something big, like that big, or is it more just like fun? Okay, we experiment, we go along the way, and let's try to figure out. Or did you already? Let me rephrase. Did you think that more than like 20 years later you would still be in that business?
Well, personally, I started in an insurance company, and we were doing SEO kind of before they thought you could sell insurance online and stuff. So that was kind of in my little world. And then as I started consulting with people, I was told by a consultant, he said, get your marketing degree, because what you're selling me, I was showing him a newspaper and saying, look, you think how many people are going to just not even look at that ad, right? And whereas in Google, you can, people are searching for you. I was, doing the pull versus push, and I didn't even know what that meant yet, right? And from a marketing parlance perspective. So it was at that point that I realized that, it is connected to the 4 Ps of marketing and the traditional classic marketing. And that's what, that's why I pursued a marketing degree. But it also made me realize how kind of nothing it was, right? As you get into marketing education back in the early 2000s, there's no sort of syllabus that includes anything about SEO, let alone search engines, and frankly, for that matter, many types of pull marketing at all, right? So it was still kind of a push marketing dominated ecosystem we lived in when I joined Sempo, and that's what, I'm ready to talk about some of the history of Sempo with you today and how that's kind of played into this conversation. That's when I realized, wow, suddenly, the board in 2005, the board consisted of
wait, Chris, because the people listening most likely never heard of Sempo. what we're talking about.
Okay, yeah. Let me start it up by a little higher level. Sorry. So anyway, this was the Search Engine Marketing Professionals Organization, which started as a noble effort by a few people in the early 2000s that were meeting at these search engine strategies conferences, which were some of the first ones, also PubCon and so forth, that started coming around way back then, right? And they decided, let's form a group, an association, to help to strengthen our position as the premier search engine marketing organization in the world, right? It was kind of a bit of a split back then in terms of let's be an association, but there certainly was a number of people involved that wanted to leverage us also as an organization that could represent the concept of search marketing, both, from an education perspective, but also financially, I think, getting benefit from it. So that's where we were at the beginning in probably 2003, 2004. There was some turmoil, which we can talk about in a minute, but it really started in the 2002 to 2003 range around these conferences.
The intent was, okay, let's try to together we'll be stronger than just one individual. Basically, that's the whole.
Since no one knows what SEO is.
And what was let's go through that journey of Sempo, because the intent was noble and very good, but the execution, obviously you didn't achieve to standardize anything and to be able, we're still at ground zero, basically. That's
if you're looking at it from a standards perspective. I mean, I think there's a lot of things we can talk about that Sempo did accomplish to help bring, search into the mainstream.
Yeah, I got to stop because, okay, honestly, I just, what happened
I know you're focused on the standards, and that's fine.
No, that's not it. It's just that I just recorded a video about all the bad behavior of SEO agencies and all the bad shit they do. So I gotta turn my brain away from that.
That's one of the reasons, right? That's Sempo also. That's the thing. That's most of what we heard about in the first, when I joined the board. For the next 5 years, it was more about like trying to run interference for bad SEOs in a way, right? And helping the agency's black eyes, putting a lot of stakes everywhere, all over the black eyes, and individuals.
That's where, because beyond the standards, most important is also the ethics, I guess, which should be at the center. Like we say, okay, if it's not illegal, why can't I do it? From an ethical perspective, or maybe your moral compass is a little sideways from what I guess most of the people think. But as long as it's not illegal, it's stretching it. So it's very complicated here. We're getting into something. Okay, so
just real quick, just to reply to that. We're talking about, I think, the middle third or it's third quarter of Sempo's existence when you're talking about, right? And there's a lot that build up to when we finally said, oh, maybe we should consider reaching out to some other groups also and do some standards. So let's talk about that in a minute. But I think that it's important also to talk about the full history briefly of how Sempo formed. And you know, I think there's a great reference. Dan Thies, you probably have heard of him. He was writing for SitePoint at the time in 2005, where he described the board of directors elections for Sempo. And he briefly, I think he did it very nicely. He says, Sempo's past difficulties are well described elsewhere. So I'll just say that it was a real learning experience for the founders who had no real experience in running a nonprofit professional organization. Quite frankly, that inexperience showed in a lot of the group's decisions and actions. So that's a great summary, I think, that Dan wrote in 2005 about sort of the first couple years of, hey, oh, let's form an association. Oh, let's do this, let's do that. And at the meantime, we're still trying, as you know, in general, across the board, trying to get heard, trying to be like, hey, it's search, it's important, trust me, it'll work. And so it was a very tumultuous time to, in a way, start an association because the industry itself was still forming, right? And the processes, the best practices, there was no such thing, right? Because there was a bunch of cowboys all over the world doing this, right? In different ways slightly, but using the Overture tool maybe as sort of one combined thing.
God, forgot about that one.
This is before, like, you know, EAT and all this stuff that we talk about now, which is nicely structured, you know? And it was a different time.
People, don't they come up to you and they're like, oh, I wish I was there, like at the golden era of SEO. I'm like, dude, it's a different mindset. We started from nothing. It was a blank sheet. Yeah. So if you had that mindset, yeah, sure. But it's not for everyone. You couldn't go on YouTube and say, how do I make money with Google AdSense? It didn't exist. So it started out there. AdSense was like 2004, something like that.
So let me quickly describe then. I'll put it in a very nutshell, and then you can dig in where you want. But so at that point in 2005, a board was elected that consisted of both in-house but a lot of agency, and at that point, that set forth sort of this attitude within the industry of, oh, Sempo's just an agency org. We can talk about that in more in a minute. And that became kind of a problem for Sempo, right? As a perception problem within the industry, especially with so many independents that started from scratch and did this themselves and may not have had a marketing education or whatever, but they became very successful. There became an instant sort of conflict that started to happening because here was Sempo trying to form some structure and it was also very represented in the board by Didit, SiteLab, Zunch, iCrossing, Carrot, Fathom Online, WebMama, Wasabi Communications was an Asian agency, Enquiro, Gord Hotchkiss, very famous, Ad Mayora, Mauro Lupi, Alchemist Media, Advertising.com, and 360i. So that is exactly 100% agencies. So if you then, you know, look forward into the future years, and frankly, I joined the board in the next year. At that point, I was with an agency. You know, there used to be this joke at the Sempo board meetings because for a while, iCrossing was the largest privately held interactive agency in America. And so once they sold, then Rosetta, where I worked, became the largest privately. And then once they sold, Mike Grehan's agency, it became the largest privately held. So it was very funny kind of jokes. But the joke was on us in a way because we seemed, I think, from the rest of the search industry's perspective to be sort of an agency vehicle, right? And I think that sort of started to generate this, are these people doing it for search or are they doing it for themselves? Personally, I've always been a bit naive and an optimist and whatever you want to call it, a diplomat's son. I went in with the intent of being in an association, and the three goals were education, research, and networking, right? I was not there, and I had no mandate from my agency to drive business as a result of my involvement in Sempo. They treated it as thought leadership. Of course, it was great to be able to say once I became chairman, of course, the agency said, oh, by the way, we have the chairman of Sempo, and that became part of probably some pitch decks. But personally, it was for the industry, right? So I want to be very clear about that. However, there was definitely, starting then, this perception that, hey, this is an agency group, right? Who do they really care about independent SEOs? So flash forward to when we start to talk about standards, that mindset's already there. And like all these independents are like, no, we don't need you telling us what to do. And it became that, again, flashing forward. But real quick, between 2005 and 2008, on Cyber Monday 2008, we rang the bell at NASDAQ, right? And Sempo at that point had made a damn good name for itself, and also had, I think, done a great job of starting to elevate the presence of search in the discussion, right? In the marketing discussion, even getting to the C-level, but certainly now at marketing directors, some marketing internal meetings. That was a big 4 or 5 years there between 2004 and 2008, 2009, where I think Sempo was very instrumental in helping us to legitimize the industry in a way. So kind of saying both sides there, I guess you could say. But that's sort of from there to there. And we can talk about in a minute. We developed, for the education, we did a whole Sempo Institute, which was great, but it was volunteer run. And we can talk about that in a minute and the frailties that it had. It evolved into sort of partnerships. We partnered with Michael Stebbins, who was Market Motive. He's done some other sort of SEO training and search training stuff over the years. We tried to find a way, since we couldn't fill our education, search, right? I mean, you can write something about SEO and in 6 months it's dated, right? And so since it was volunteers, the whole Sempo Institute kind of ended up crumbling. But at one point, granted, some of these agencies were on there, but we had like 60, 70 people in there from iCrossing that were running through this curriculum of Sempo Institute. And it was actually a quote unquote moneymaker for a nonprofit that helped us to, further reinvest in the research and some of the networking and stuff like that. So I'll stop for a minute because there's a few other points that I do want to bring up, but I'm curious as to where you'd like to go, which direction.
My dear friend, I could copy and paste what you just said to the Sempo, the French Sempo, okay, which is called SEO Camp. Exact same experience I had than yours. Went in there, okay, yeah, sure, cool. And then, some people were not so... Well, some people had an agenda, let's put it this way. And same, the only difference is the SEO Camp, what you call the Sempo Institute, or what they did with like an exam and you get a certificate. I was like, guys, you got to get this, you get the stamp, you need the stamp of the state. You can't just... it has no value. Your certificate has no value if you... Yeah, but it's difficult. Well, figure it out. I don't know. Not my problem. All I say is you won't have... so I guess the French went a little further than you guys because it's still going on and they will eventually get that diploma officialized. But it's the tip of the iceberg. You're right. This whole standards things and then being able to know what the job is all about, complicated. Let's go back just to this friction between, okay, on one hand, let's organize the industry. On the other hand, why do you want to, why be visible? We, today, let's put it this way. I'm glad that we failed at standardized anything. From my personal, very egotistic, my personal journey into SEO, I'm fine with being invisible at this point in my career. However, maybe it's time to put some order into this bee's nest. How do you call the nest of the bees? Has a special name in English?
Yeah, the bee, bee's nest is a term, but it's definitely a hive also.
Hive.
Bee's hive.
Because that's what it is. It's business is flowing in. People who want to make money. People who just want to chill. It's still a very flourishing industry, let's put it this way. And if you really want to make it, nothing is stopping you.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
But back then, there was a lot of people that were also getting into it and felt an ownership of this new industry, right? And although a lot of the agencies that I just listed certainly were some of the top ones, including, the other eyes, the iProspect, which is not on there yet, but they did end up on the board eventually. This sort of we versus them mentality started off early, unfortunately, I think. And that's, and even when I, went to a bigger agency, and I was already a speaker at conferences since about 2004. And I was working with a much smaller agency. It was deemed cool. But, as soon as I went to a bigger agency, people were like, oh man, why aren't you on your own? And blah, blah. And it was more like, I read it as, oh, thanks for the compliment. Yes, I should be on my own or whatever. But I didn't read it as, oh, you went to work for the enemy.
You sold out,
but that's in fact what a lot of these people were telling me, now on hindsight. And frankly, if I didn't do that, I would not have a master's degree in search and user experience and all this other stuff that I know pretty well as a result of having worked with so many great teams across, two now Publicis-owned agencies, right? These were legit agencies. I was in a senior leadership position and thought leadership and director. I was involved in client work also. And so my role was different than a lot of these people that were on the board also, right? And they were typically often in a higher executive position. And what ended up happening was we had a couple people that dinged us because we would do a press release for Sempo and it would say so-and-so chairperson and also president of such and such company, right? And so people started, the haters, as it were, started to say, oh, well, look, it's just being used for marketing their own agencies. They don't care about the education of the research or the networking. It's really just about them, right? But in fact, they were doing a lot of work behind the scenes, especially, in the 2000s. Every year that I was on the board, which was about 12 years, by the way, we did a lot of work, right? And we had good ethos, right? And we had we wanted to help the industry grow, right? And that's why we kept going back. Research, I mean, for a long time, we had the only research that was out there, right? The Sempo State of the industry was good till the early 2010s, probably, until it kind of lost its luster. But before that, I mean, if there was a press need for data related to search, they were going to that state of the market research piece that Sempo put out every year, right? So Gord Hotchkiss led that forever. Amazing job he did. And great gentleman he was. One of the many great gentlemen and ladies that I had a chance to work with on the board over the years and learned so much from, right? But the point is that like in 2013, we did a salary survey, and at that point we did that together with Conductor. I don't know if they were still selling links back then or not, but I think it was just after. So 23 session, respondents' backgrounds. We had, types of companies, business, B2C, B2B, respondents. I'm just scrolling through a deck here and trying to get to something decent. But salary ranges, largest number of respondents earned between 50K and 60K annually, and that responded to this US dollars in 2013, right? So what we basically were showing people is that this is a legitimate industry and people are making a lot of money. 12, just the next higher number was 0 to 30K, right? But there was also some people, a few people like over 1% that were making over 250,000 a year in search themselves, right? And obviously in executive roles. But this kind of data was coming out regularly from Sempo until the early 2010s. And we just started, there was so much other data starting to come out. You have the industry research bodies that are trying to do their research and make money off it and blah, blah. And I'm not even going to go talk about, one particular research company that I despise that I was involved with getting researched for their quadrants in when I was at an agency. But their methodology made me sick about how they rated someone's SEO. They were like, you don't rank for Diamond Engagement Ring in Boise, Idaho. They peeled out these random searches. We could talk a whole like hour about the methodology behind some of these third-party raters of agencies. I think that we should put that on a note as something, the pay-to-play awards and the agency ratings that people get into. So anyway, I digress. Point is that with Sempo, we did a lot of this research, and it was free, right? As per se, it was paid for by the members, and it was distributed to the industry, and people used it, and people liked it. And that, the research part alone and the education we already talked about, those both had very meaningful lifetimes, right? And then lastly, the networking, that's continued, right? And we used to do Sempo Local. Now there was Sempo Cities. That still, even though Sempo's gone, those groups actually still exist. By the way, Sempo did break up a couple of years ago. Finally, unfortunately, we just ran out of money. There was not enough desire and value seen in the membership. So there's a few of us that are now part of the Digital Analytics Association, and we formed a search special interest group, or a search SIG there, with some of the former leadership of Sempo, and people that are still very passionate about it. Christy Reed, one of them from Thomson Reuters, has been a person who really probably single-handedly kept Sempo alive. Like the last 3 years, she was doing everything, like so much work, right? As a lot of us became busier or people dropped off that had time. When I was on the board and I was working with an agency, I was given time to use to help Sempo, right? But it's still a volunteer organization, which I think, that and ultimately, even though we paid for a virtual management company, it still is what contributed to the finality of it, is that there was no real paid Sempo,
It's complicated because today, yes, but looking back, did you have any other choice to do this volunteer type of association even from a juridic standpoint, from a legal standpoint, you can't, there was no, I don't know about the US, but over here, now you have some hybrid company or nonprofit type of situation. Let's put it this way. Today, you have more possibilities to organize a group of people than back then.
Yeah, social media didn't exist back then, that's for sure. Although it probably would have buried Sempo a little more. I mean, the part that we brushed over, what happened was the original board in there trying to figure out what to do stuff, decided to take some salary, right, for the president position. And that's what freaked everyone out, right? And so it became, oh, God, you're going to just collect money from the industry to pay yourself, right, was the attitude. And at that point, the decision had been made that it was probably the wise decision now looking back, right? Like if that person had taken a salary and it was accepted, then there would be more of an impetus and a requirement, to satisfy the salary, and it wouldn't be a volunteer position anymore, right? So flash forward to the whole salary thing being buried. It's still, though, to me, a couple people took black eyes that shouldn't have. Barbara Cole is the we owe so much to her, the industry, and she really, I think, took some very unfair criticism for the whole thing. As Dan had summarized it in his article, this was a new association starting in a new industry. You got to give them a break, I think. And hopefully, I think a lot of people that were hating back then maybe would look back now and say, well, they did what they were trying to do. And they course corrected, right? In 2005, no more payments, everything. And then we move forward.
It's so copy and paste across the pond. Yeah. Exactly. I recognize like every single characteristic and every single mistake. But because you were first, so SEO Camp learned a little bit from Sempo. For example, of course, behind the people, you have agencies or you have freelance or whatever, but it was one of the rules. You come in as an individual. You're one person, and that was the spirit. Even I remember the public talks, you had your name tag. It didn't have the company name underneath. It was just individuals. And that was because of Sempo, because you broke the ice before. but the politics, man. And once I started to go against SEO Camp because I got fed up and I was like, okay, F you guys. Ciao. See you later. But I didn't keep my mouth shut, giving my point of view on certain facts and certain mindsets. But when you dig a little bit, and without giving names or whatever, it doesn't matter, Sampo, SEO Camp or whatever, some behaviors, I know cognitive bias, I know the brain, but some people will do certain things and looking back, I'm like, what? How can you, what's going on? And even, especially when they get together, a group of people, and when there's a division inside basically it was in SEO Camp was not like us against them. It was within SEO Camp. There are the people who kind of use this brand as a house to do business, and others who just came along for the ride and tried to push the industry forward. Yeah. So let's not waste too much time on those individuals.
One quick thing too, that's a side conversation that might be a good seg into the next part about it or whatever. But another thing that was always, I think, in a way, unfortunate, but we had to take money, a lot of money from Google and Microsoft to keep the organization running, especially when we were doing the Institute and we were spending a lot of money on the software and the editors and all that stuff. So we took, a decent chunk of money every year from Google, and Microsoft also helped us, as well as in the early days, we had other sponsors like Superpages, and part of the job of the board was to go out and try to get a sponsor. Like part of, the board meetings, they'd say, hey, can you go get some sponsors for us? And so some of the board members themselves were sponsors by being circle level members at $5,000 a year. You did get a link on the Sempo homepage from that, and we can talk about selling links on Sempo. We should talk about that later, because that became part of our downfall too, is when people started selling links through the blogs at Sempo. The point is that we were able to, where was I before I started talking about selling links on Sempo?
No, you were saying you were going you were going into the way of, okay, there's
Google and Bing.
You were responding to my surprise of how some people indulge in certain behaviors.
Yeah. And then so there's that. And then also Bing and Google, people are like, well, are these people really like in our best interest?
Are you working for Google?
Like strings here, like the puppeteer, right? And that's 100% understandable from a human suspicious type of person that I'm not. But if SEO's conspiracists might think, that Google, if they're, and frankly, here's a good example, right? Where when I was chairman, I was working at an agency in Cleveland, and I did work together with the Google PR team to write an op-ed that got published in the Cleveland Plain Dealer, the big newspaper, that said, hey, Cleveland's becoming a great tech place, right? And don't worry about Cleveland dying because it's, a dying steel city anymore, because tech is great and blah, blah. And so it was, I think the piece had a lot of value to it, right? And even though, it was helped and facilitated with the help of the Google PR team, they were in a way on the same page with Sempo. So there's a lot of arguments, right? You could say that was completely like Google used Sempo's chairperson to write, an op-ed for Cleveland, or you could say that Google was helpful in supporting the growth of technology, which was and continues to be in Cleveland, right? And so they were instrumental in a way in helping to convince people in the area that, hey, listen to these tech geeks, right? Stop only looking for big companies that are manufacturers or whatever. These tech companies have something to say, and they're here to stay. Is kind of, the, I guess, summary. I'm sure you could go find the op-ed that I wrote. But point is, that's an example where the wrong person, the wrong conspiracist will just totally take that as a great example of, oh, Google was using Sempo, where I think it was Google was working together with Sempo to help, promote the industry. And granted, yes, for Google and for every agency on here, and even myself, even though I'm not actively trying to get business from Sempo, I might stand to benefit, or somebody might reach out to me because of it, or something like that. But then at that point, I think ethically, I'm okay, right?
Isn't it just always the same issue? It's not about conspiracy or not. It's about being informed, understanding the context. If you just take, okay, this little nugget, yeah, Microsoft and Google sponsor Sempo. Sure, you could see a conspiracy, but if educate yourself, you have to learn. It's we see it every day in the news, a video or a photo, and it's a snapshot. What happened before? Okay, I want context, and especially also, I'm always very careful with former member, former employee. If there was such a problem, why didn't you leave when you were an employee? Okay, why did you start opening your mouth after? Like the social dilemma. Yeah, former Google employee, former Facebook employee. Okay, please, Netflix, be a little more serious. Like, you put forward all those former employees. Why didn't they open their mouths? Like, I don't know, maybe they're right, but it's just a little bit strange that they're all former employees, And that gives me exactly the same impression here, where, even today, SEO Camp, the other day, we got into a fight with a couple of friends because they judged a tweet. What was going on behind the tweet? Or is that, yeah, sure, you can criticize that tweet. It was like we're doing some stupid contest and it was not very elegant and not very subtle. It was just kind of random, okay, whatever. Okay, you can criticize that, but do you know everything? Do you know really all those elements? Everybody is able to give a point of view, but are all the point of view of equal value? I think that's what is important here. And especially in the SEO industry, which is very passionate. People are very, very passionate. So when you know that it comes with that territory, and this passion can definitely overtake the reasoning, and you get into behaviors that are very surprising because you get so passionate about the topic, and you lose a little bit the sight of right and wrong, or what is the middle ground here? Objectivity. Yeah. Exactly. Passion. SEOs are very passionate. You can't take that away from them. It's a quality, but also drain some. It's not good.
It's part of the nature. I mean, the old "it's not rocket science" applies, because if it was rocket science, our life would be a lot easier, right? And we know that we would have to go through steps A through Z and the rocket would go up, right? But for all of us, every single SEO has a different rocket and a different set of tools and a different budget, right? And so it's very difficult, I think, to, in some cases, remain objective about SEO because of your current whatever you're having problems with. And that can range from, hey, I'm doing everything right and I had the rankings, to suddenly now they're gone and I don't know what the heck, to I'm mad as hell because I can tell that 3 of my competitors are buying hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of links, or this or that, right? And so every SEO is going to bring that passion and a slightly different sort of genre to the conversation. And when you mix that, that makes it difficult, I think, with a group like Sempo too, because people aren't all thinking the exact same way. Even the agencies are thinking differently in a way, right? And back then, especially now, God forbid that we were to ever become, rocket science to A to Z clear for SEO, but we are closer to that, right? And people like you and me have been teaching, the core of technology at the base and content and links for years, right? And we've also been teaching EAT or those concepts for years too. And frankly, I think that those could be considered now, the framework for any SEO, right? And I think that a group like Sempo or something like that could help to defragment all the different visuals that you see out there about how to do SEO from a one-on-one perspective.
For everybody watching, what rings a bell here is in the world of search. First of all, why is search so much better than anything else out there? Social selling, emailing, whatever. Because of intent. When you're searching, you're on a different mindset that if I disturb you on social media or in inbox or TV or whatever. So because of the intent, we've always been and will be until the end of time the best pipeline for whatever you want. Selling or anything else because of intent. Now, within the world of search, there is paid search and what we call organic search, SEO. When you pay, it's like real estate. You buy a ranking for a certain time for a certain amount. With SEO, you just invest to try to be legit, to prove your point, to answer that question, are you relevant? So, of course, maybe it's the nature of the beast and trying to standardize and trying to organize people. Like maybe it's all wrong. Maybe because it's kind of a floating technology and evolving skills and you need to adapt or basically die. That's the way it is in SEO. If you don't adapt, the market doesn't care.
Within the framework, you're still adapting daily based on your competitors and your own,
And we have also the fakers, also the ones who just talk. Where do you rank? What did you achieve? What have you done? Okay, what you just talk? We got a lot of those. So between the ones who are legit but don't talk, the ones who are not legit but talk, the ones complicated.
Well, you can hear it. I mean, it's like, and that's to me. That's one of the reasons I just don't have time to write as much anymore because I have a lot of client stuff that I'm doing and there's a good mix of SEO and paid search. So, for me, healthily, I can remain busy and healthy and do different things. Right. And that's one of the great things about being SEO too, is that you don't have to come in and do the exact same thing every day and you can work it in a cycle. Right. But I guess we're digressing a little away from Sempo, but the point is that I was bringing up is that we have, I think, helped to launch sort of a structure or a framework and not standards. And we did come up to that conversation. And Tony Wright, who runs an agency in Texas, great guy, he had volunteered to set up a neutral site, and we called it searchcongress.org.
Oh, I didn't know about that one.
The last time we had talked about standards, everyone said, oh, Sempo's talking about standards? Screw you, we hate Sempo. So we said, oh, okay, there's all these other groups around here. We created literally an invitation to other search groups to join Search Congress to decide if there should be standards. Not to make standards, right? But just the whole point of Search Congress was to get everyone in the conversation that wanted to be around the world, any search group or whatever could join Search Congress, and then we could decide, should there be search standards? So within a month, there was PubCon, and at the speaker enclave there, poor Tony got raped, basically.
I could imagine.
It was just terrible, right? It was Sempo trying to take over the industry again and blah, 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 blah. But it was just, come on. No one even looked at the reality of what we were trying to do at that point, which is just to get everyone to the table. And this was 6-7 years ago, maybe more. I can't remember the exact time that this happened. But I personally, got into it with some people that are close friends, both via Facebook, and stuff like that, because I was attached to Sempo, and people really took the gloves off this time, right? When we really sort of did that Search Congress thing, and it flew over everyone's head what the point of it was, which is let's get all these groups that don't agree together to decide, do we need standards, right? And then maybe from yours and my perspective, cooler heads can prevail. and we can say, well, maybe we don't need standards, but let's do the whole time I always wanted this set of guidelines, right? That was created by an educated set of people that said, okay, this tactic, this is what it is. And this is the risk rating, right? I want a tactical risk rating for everything we can do. And to me, that would be the great compromise between full standards and nothing at all, the Wild West that we're at now, that then an educated marketer can go look at that document and make a decision based on the risk
I love that
described, right? And that's something that can be updated every year, every 6 months, because buying links was much riskier 2 years ago. One would say, or could say, and then these things will go up and down, right? So to me,
I love this approach. Tactical. I love how you brought that up, because that's what it's all about. It's not right and wrong. It's just a level of risks.
Yeah.
If it's not illegal, it's allowed. Period. Whatever you think of the Google guidelines, the law is the law. The easiest way to build links is through hacking. If
you want to sell FA Cup shirts, and it's two teams that are not going to play the next year in the final of the FA Cup, you'll do anything and everything to get on right away, right? And it's a churn and burn strategy, right? And let's just get that domain up. Let's get it ranked. Let's sell the shirts, and then I don't care what happens to the domain, because I only have 100,000 shirts to sell, and there we go. Yeah.
I call that event SEO, to be polite.
Nice.
event SEO. 3 months maximum. and it's just very aggressive.
It's like a really bright star shooting through the sky.
And you kill it
when it works.
You kill it before Google can get on it.
Get it out and then withdraw it, that's
but you can even repeat it. I have clients who do it on a yearly, it's like a yearly event type of thing, like sales or whatever.
Super Bowl, something like that.
But as long as it's not illegal, I'm fine with it. That's where I draw my line. Some others will go if
Google is not yet, making laws, right? So, but some people will conflate illegal with against the rules, and frankly,
But even
I'm
if
not
you
a black hat, but
Chris,
gray hat is what you got to do to win.
Chris, if you were 16 years old today, 16 years old, you're living with your parents, you get into SEO, you do a little bit of hacking, whatever. Well, maybe if the Saratoga police, if a guy with a badge and a gun comes into your house and takes you away for a couple of days, maybe that's a good life experience. I would say you won't die. You won't. Maybe hopefully you won't get a record, but
depends what country you're in.
Exactly, and depends what kind of hacking you've done. If it's just links and if it's XSS vulnerabilities, well, not. But if you start to put some stuff on the server, and that's a different story. Anyways, we get sidetracked, but that's very interesting because it rang a bell what you just said with this tactical approach, because it changes the game. The whole perspective on the same thing, standards, is really not the same if you come with this tactical approach. Because like you said, it evolves, it changes every year, and it's just up to you to, red flag. You could just...
We've talked about how some of us old timers could, help. And certainly that would be a great project, I think, for a group of respected individuals to, put together something like that's accessible online, and then, promise to update it every forth, and make that available, not necessarily free, but make it available for marketers to...
I think we should do it, because we don't need to be under any flag, let's put it this way, to do our thing. Because you wanted to talk about studies a little bit. Yeah. Because studies from Sampo were the core of building of the industry. But when I see what studies became, basically, here's my point. When you start to investigate something... Oh,
you mean the ranking... that was the best one, the ranking signals, whatever. And they would send out the survey to 1,000 SEOs or whatever. What do you think? Does linking work? Does the H1 work?
Yeah,
And then everyone answers it, and then everyone says, "Oh, these are the 100 ranking signals that everyone thought was important." But this was just a collection of opinion, right, versus research. I think. I mean, I guess you could argue that is what a survey is, but no one had to prove that they had ever optimized a single freaking site by hand
exactly.
to be able to answer those questions, right? And that's what my problem with them were. If that's what you're talking about.
I was thinking about them, but I was thinking also about today the people who put like 2 million URL into some kind of script or machine
Oh, yeah.
learning and then find out, okay, I studied 2 million URLs and here's what I found.
Yeah.
Or basically any study that will go, okay, here how it goes. You investigate something, you take a right, and you make the answers fit your agenda. Or you take a left and you don't know where you're going. You won't even know if you're going to find something. That's how you investigate. But if you take a right and you want, it's very so easy to make the answers fit what your purpose is, because correlation does not mean causality. And at the end of the day, yeah, I can find the 7 secrets of on-page optimization if I want to, and find an average number of words or whatever. It's very easy to go that route. Now, to be open-minded and to go left and just investigate. What you did with sample was just very. It was binary. Okay, the studies you'd made, it was not very. Controversial, and there was nothing
Agreed.
controversial about it. Now, the whole, I mean, let's keep it within the SEO vertical. Studies from that survey to what it is today, it's just madness. It makes no sense. The word studies brings like chills. I'm like, no, study, please. Can we be serious for 5 minutes? It comes from nothing, goes nowhere, and doesn't bring anything to the table. What you did, especially with the salaries and all that, is first try to document. Okay, it was important to start documenting, and it's a shame that it stopped, because if you look back, who documented this whole journey? And if you didn't do a study back then about the salaries, how can we compare? Is there an evolution? Is it up? Is it down?
Right.
Is it what it's all about? So now the issue is, yeah, sure. Anybody can send a survey to 1,000 SEOs and say, how much do you make? That's not my point. It's more having this, in my mind, tell me if I'm wrong, but Sampo, SEO Camp, or whatever should be like the mothership, should be not the regulator, but the bienveillant. Let me try to find the word in English.
The shepherd.
Shepherd, yeah, exactly. Instead of a regulator or like, it's a subtle difference in semantics, but it's very important to be more like a shepherd, or be the ones who, nobody's watching you, nobody's like not allowing you to, forbidding you to do anything. It's just somebody who is coming in with a open mindset, but also trying to help people sort out the mess, because that's what it is still today. How do you find a good SEO? It's always the same question. Like how do I find the person that's going to help me achieve some results?
Yeah, and so the research evolved itself, right? And the reason that we got to NASDAQ in 2008 and so forth was based on a lot of the research being around the growth of the industry. So in 2012, we were predicting that search would be a $24 billion industry by 2014, right? And I personally didn't do that much research before this call to go find out how true we were, but I know that we were typically pretty on point with the growth scale, even though the numbers might not have been exact. The other thing that I thought was useful that we did was we separated the results between people that were in agencies answering the questions and people that were in-house.
Of course.
So that was something that we did well. For a long time, before Dwayne Forster went to Bing, he was in-house at some, I can't remember the name of the company he worked at in Canada, but he was on the board and he ran, we jokingly called it the In-House Committee because of his Canadian accent. And but he was able to drive a lot of sort of a welcomed feeling. When we started, as Sempo evolved and kept going to conferences and so forth, we started doing in-house only events where people at the door would be checked to see if they were an agency or not. And if they were, they would be like, get out of here. Because we wanted the Sempo members that were in-house to feel comfortable to have conversations without some agency drooling over what they're talking about, right? So, but that's an example, another example of sort of how the group continued to evolve based on sort of the evolution of the industry and the needs, right? And so although the research questions, a lot of them stayed similar so that we could have that trend line, on looking back. It also evolved based on, we started including social. At one point, I remember a board meeting, we literally thought about changing our name to Sempo so that we could be search and social engine. It was because social became so big and we were like struggling. Are we a social association But these are the kinds of things that happen in a board. And the other thing is we were struggling with people selling links, right? Because we had opened up our blog to guest posts, and somebody had surreptitiously created sort of a back channel that no one saw because we're all volunteers, right? And then I went in, and the first thing that was drawn to our attention is somebody sending me an email and said, "You guys are selling links now?" Because those link sellers, they send and they say, "Oh, you can get links on this site. It's DA, blah, 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 blah. Sempo, DA, blah, blah," or, I think PageRank it back then or whatever when they were selling it instead of DA. Point is that, we had to end up fighting a lot of that in the background. Some of those people might be listening right now. It was nice while it lasted, I'm sure, but we ended up being able to totally eliminate all those links and get rid of them. And I'm sure they probably had some clients that were like, "Where's my link on Sempo?" But anyway, that was, that's just a little dabble into all the different other kinds of stuff that went on in the Sempo existence, right? As we were evolving this research and education and networking kind of concept. We even started doing a Sempo member event that Mike Grehan really championed because he had been involved, obviously, in running the search engine strategy shows for a while. He's with Acronym, one of their leaders there now. But he, longtime board member, I think he came on just after me or something but now I don't know. But anyway, we were both the longest time board members. And he launched this member event that we did in San Diego, and we did some awards, Sempo awards, because everyone else is doing awards. Let's do some awards, but that's, I'll stop. But there's so many other little stories, related to the whole Sempo existence around standards. And yet, the fact that we were an agency org. Another problem that was seen was that we're too U.S. centric. We lost some of our international board members as a result of that. There was that, the original issues. There was the being too agency focused, too U.S. centric. And then, just a couple other little problems that hurt us over the years. So
I want to go back to links because it's now it's kind of okay. It's funny to think about it, but looking at it from another perspective, I'm like, what the fuck? Come on, how can you have what's going on in your brain? I would love to know what is going through some people's mind to be able to legitimate that kind of thought process. Okay.
Same kind of people that steal candies from children, I think, probably.
I don't know. I don't know. It's the whole question, were serial killers born or raised? Is it like a
nature or nurture? Right?
Yeah, nature or nurture, exactly. same thing. I can't figure it out, and maybe it's the wrong. Maybe I should stop trying to bang myself against my head against the walls, trying to say like, come on, how can you? How can you even like think that way? You know, it just makes no sense. No sense from A to Z. Like just none. But still, some people are doing it. So I guess again, it's easy to say, oh, you need ethics at the center or whatever you do. Yeah, sure. Not everybody was brought up the same. Not everybody comes in with the same experience, culture, whatever it is, I don't know. And the same topic could be approached with different mindset. But when you are under some kind of organization, especially when you look at Sempo, I can't figure out how you can put like, okay, we're gonna sell links on the site with what Sempo is all about. Especially, you need a certain type of access, okay, to be able to sell links.
It's a joke to them too, like, oh, look, these people think they know search. We're gonna, sell links behind their back on their own site. I mean, I would probably have chuckled about it if I was on that end. I wouldn't want to do that because it's meant to be an industry site, and again, people paid for Premier memberships because you get the link on the homepage for some years, right? And we ranked #1 for search engine marketing from about 2005 till 2010 or 2011, probably. There was a long time that if you search engine marketing, there we were, right?
But Mr. Chris, what do you think about timing? Do you think that if you started off today, Sempo, there would be some difference, or it would be the same? It's just pretending that behaviors evolve and that people get some reasoning behind the freshness.
I think here from a North American perspective, and maybe you could speak to this. Obviously, being in a much more country fragmented environment in Europe. I feel that is actually the better route to really promote the networking and the value of an organization like Sempo. It has to be at least partially face-to-face. The virtual organization, and especially now, I mean, if you think about it after COVID, I mean, people want to get back together. People want to see, and there's group that's brewing in Chicago that of people that are just going to meet so they can talk about SEO. It's Brent Payne from Loud, another old school guy. And he's got like Mark Trafagan and stuff like that are interested in doing it, right? So because they're going to get together and talk SEO and talk search at a bar, right? And have a nice dinner or something like that, right? And there was a group that I belong to here in New York that was so fun. With Avi Walensky and Frank Watson. A guy by the name of Greg Nyland ran it, and it was called Internet Marketers of New York. And basically, like, it was a little weird, like, just like when you got there, Greg tried to throw you off by asking you, like, if you had to eat like a dead cat or a dead dog, which would you eat, or something like that, but much more X-rated type of a question. And he'd try to throw you off. But, that was an example of where, and this was 10 years ago at least, right? And as we saw with Sempo Cities evolution and even Sempo Local, the local clusters, right? And so to me, the answer to your question is that I think Sempo could work, but it would be better if it was as a result of having first formed really strong local groups that originally were maybe Sempo groups or other groups, like the Dallas Fort Worth. There's certain groups. Portland is another one. LA has a vibrant group. I mentioned Chicago. There's Kansas City. Nothing really. People are too busy at the beach, I guess, in Florida. Oh, no, my bad. I'm just kidding. They have a great one. It's the South Florida Interactive Marketing Association. I've actually spoken at some of their events and stuff. But, these are all, I think, potentially vibrant groups that could continue to grow and would maybe benefit from sort of a central brand or whatever. But I just don't. I don't know if right now if we could take it off and do any better, than these groups are at attracting people to their own local groups, right? So what would it be? And that was often, with the exception of the research value, you could give a webinar, for example, you get one of the SEMPO webinars or whatever if you are a corporate sponsor, right? So that was one of the values you get back for corporate sponsorship. You have access to a couple emails a year that you send through, the SEMPO list. So there was some values there, but really, I think, the majority of the value sort of petered out for a lot of people, I guess you could say, in that the main value is the networking, right? And the ability to maybe do some business with someone by talking to them, or partner with someone, or just to learn more about search, right? Some of us. So the idea, I think, even today, without having some sort of I would say that PubCon has done a better job of being the current SEMPO than a SEMPO could do, because you can go to PubCon. There's the annual one every year in Vegas, and then they have their satellite ones. They have Florida, which they're tentatively planning to get going again this year. And I was signed up for last spring until they had to push it and then push it again, right? But that is sort of, in a way, my current way to interact with search marketers is conferences, right? Because and so SEMPO or something like it would have to have, I think, the in-person part, and that's where I think that the best route for something like that might be to try to see if you could form a coalition, almost like Search Congress was, of all these different groups, right? And then you could even, it would be fun. You could have a sister group, like the SFIMA could have a sister group that is the France Internet Marketers or SEMCamp or whatever. And then the one in LA could be married up to the Japanese Internet, There could be some cool ways to sort of approach that. But I personally feel that it's not the right time to try to start something big like that, that's international, without first trying to figure out a way to make it so that you could just leverage all the existing groups and have them work together in a diplomat, like almost a UN of search groups, right? I think would be better approach than trying to create a brand like SEMPO and market it.
Oh, I like this UN analogy, because I think that's like we say, okay, this shepherd, this one is overlooking, but not trying to tell you what to do. It's just wearing the blue helmet.
Each group could send someone to help write those guidelines or whatever, if that became the purpose of the group like that too,
But even access, because you need access to, you want speakers, you want people, you want sponsors, you want networking. You said the word. It's insane how my little group of students, because I teach how to become a SEO, not just how to do SEO. It's been over 5 years, and most of the students never unsubscribe. They're still on board, because what they find is, well, first of all, they do a lot of business between them, and a lot. And it forms like a club, and they can, because it's a lonely job. We are in our little cave in front of the computer, and it's a human need. We need to reach out. We need to be together. We can't, even the ones who pretend. No, you need. It's human nature. You need to get together. So why not just let's play down? Okay, I would even do an event with just free Wi-Fi, open bar, DJ, and see what happens. Yeah, there's a mic. There's a you have something to say. All right, register.
Conference style.
Yeah, bar camp like the old days. And the most important is not the talk; it's the networking. So let's focus on that. Yeah, sure.
The Take It Offline group is like that too, in a way, right? That's the last sort of That's the last thing like that I went to was Take It Offline in Amsterdam at the end of 2019.
I heard that was cool.
With Jerry White
Mm.
and um, Arnout and all those fools.
Because in Europe it's pretty much Brighton SEO, which is the centerpiece of SEO in Europe. But every single country has amazing events, from Germany to Spain. So how do you put some order in that clutter, and how do you bring people together from all over the world? Is pretty ambitious, but
only certain people, like I know Judith, for example, speaks at all those, right? I mean, but there's certain people that get to be at all of them, but it would be great if somehow it could, be more people that could experience all those different groups, right?
There's a need. There's a need to be together for sure, 100%. There's a need to have some kind of guide. Also, there's plenty of need in this industry, for sure, and people want to. But then, yeah, haters gonna hate for sure, also. But if you learn from the mistakes from the past, why not? What's stopping SEOs from getting together and trying to promote themselves in an ethical and healthy way without maybe the problem was that by leveraging Sempo, others felt threatened. You know what I mean? It's all about maybe this thing of, okay, how can you approach the same people, different approach, without getting them so pissed off just because they felt that it was a threat. So how do you transform a threat into something less threatening? Well, it's all about communication. The same thing can be packaged different ways. So
yeah, there's right now a new group that kind of came out shortly before the final death throes of Sempo. That's paid search related, but I guess it's probably COVID that's held them down a little bit. But I haven't heard much from them at all, right? And I don't see anything out there. You said SEO Camp is in France sort of a voice as per se, or a group.
Yes and no.
Brighton's not really a group, right? I mean, in a way, like one of the most vocal groups right now is the informal mega thread.
Yeah.
And they don't even talk about SEO.
Sure.
And so it's like, what, where are people gathering right now? Anywhere, it's very fragmented. And
Clubhouse.
right.
The elite is on Clubhouse. And offline, we were talking about Clubhouse, and I was making the analogy, saying that maybe timing is not right, in my opinion. It's the trend, yeah, sure, from text to voice. It's an obvious choice. We won't go backwards for sure. It will go more towards voice than text, but not as a standalone, or not in the shape or form of Clubhouse. I guarantee that. It was a good idea, and they are on point, but not the way they are doing it, and especially not with this sort of like hipster thing, where it's. I went into a couple of SEO things on Clubhouse, and I had to bite my tongue. I was like, okay, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to listen. Even some big names, I'm not going to mention anybody, but I'm like, really? That's how you approach your job today, and this specific part of your job in 2021? That's wow. It looks like 2010 to me.
Yeah, and that's, everyone has their own history, right? And so that's why you're smart to not say anything. And in a way, as you and I both, I'm sure, are becoming wiser, I've learned, more and more often to try to not judge someone's tactics, because you never know why, right? Like, for example, for me, I may like to outsource a particular area of SEO because I want to focus more on technical and content. But that doesn't mean that I'm lazy or unwilling to do a lot of work related to, you know, ethical link building. But it's because I trust my partner is doing that, and that they're not, you know, tripping filters, et cetera, et cetera. And frankly, I'm unique, right? I'm a consultant of one. I work with about 5 big brands, and I have only a certain amount of time, and that time set does not include me going to, even though I have strategic meetings with them, helping guide, you know, their ability to drive links through their relationships, which is our primary way. We still have to kind of fill the coffer a little bit, you know. But that's an example where someone might hear me say that and say, "Oh, he's not a real SEO. He's not doing the real PR and the outreach and blah 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 blah." But I'm sorry, I just don't have time for everything, right? And so that's an example where you can't judge someone that's an SEO expert in the way that they might describe a certain tactic or the way that they execute it, because you don't know their own personal schedule and how much, you know. That's just the way I would think about it.
I find myself deleting tweets. Like before I press tweet, I'm like, no, delete. Don't tweet that. Don't answer that. Just because also that's the thing. 15 years ago, we could say certain things in a certain way that we can't anymore. Yeah. Not here to judge. It's just the way it evolves. Cursing is not proper anymore. The whole, well, whatever it is, we just have to be aware that behaviors change, and the way the public opinion is addressed today, especially on Twitter and such, you need to adapt again. I communicate a lot, and if I can't change my message, or my message is the same, but the way I disclose my message definitely changed with different cultures. I don't communicate the same way in France that I communicate in French that I communicate in English. And you also gave me some feedback. I'm like, I don't understand. You curse so much in French and you yell so much in French. What is that? Yeah, because different public, different...
And everyone knows cursing in French, it's much more fun. I mean, come on.
Yeah, and also have this 20-year relationship with my audience in France. They know where I come from, and I'm well known for yelling at everybody on certain things, and it became kind of a game. But in English, different place, different culture, and if people started to, especially SEO, if I had one single message to come across, is try to put yourself in the other people's shoes for 1 second, and everything will change. And educate yourself, especially as SEOs. I don't understand how you can't just be swallowed by this opinion, like non-experimented opinions. You need to know what you're talking about. It doesn't require much work before you vouch your voice against the Congress. What was it? Congress Search Congress? Search Congress, yeah. Yeah, in French we put it after. So Search Congress, it's before. Search Congress. Before you voice against it, educate yourself. Just read the end of the sentence. Because that's one of the things that SEOs don't do. They read, if you watch a football game, you watch first half and second half. Don't quit at halftime. Okay? If you quit at halftime, you don't know the end of the game. And that's the same thing. Why so many SEO myths? Because they don't read the end of the sentence. If they just get the whole picture, there wouldn't be any.
I've seen them up at like, they read something like halfway and then, write my response to this right now. It's like,
you know exactly what I'm talking about. You see? Read the end of the sentence. Go through second half of the game and wait until the end to voice your opinion. That's all it is.
I think the point about Clubhouse, it ties in there too, right? And this is where I frankly have had, the idea to write a little bit more. and then I wrote something that I published at Search Engine Land a couple months ago now, around paid search, because it was new, and it was about Google Auto suggestions within the paid search campaign. So anyway, it was a long piece. It was more of an opinion slash, summary piece, and it hadn't been written, right? So then I went to like think about writing something else, and I'm like, oh, I wonder if somebody's written about this. And like, lo and behold, like 10 people have written the exact title that I was thinking in my head in the last 12 months, right? So that's, right now, in terms of what to believe, first of all, is a big problem, like you said, but also, the saturation of writing on particular topics is out there. So that's where I also feel that the value of Clubhouse exists, and even that's where the conferences come into play as well. Is you're going to hear and learn different things, especially if the conference is set up or the construction of the conversation in Clubhouse or whatever medium, where it allows us to riff and to speak from experience versus, oh, I'm writing a paragraph, I'm writing the next paragraph, I'm writing the next paragraph. I always loved in sessions, the problem is you have to be reliant on enough people in the audience asking a freaking question. I don't know why no one asks questions when they come to conferences, but there's always one person that has 7 questions. But
just
point is,
just put
where,
free SEO audit, free SEO audit. They ask questions.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, and those sessions work great. Like you get 5 of us up there. One of us is on, SEMrush or SEMrush. Another one is on, using some maybe Screaming Frog or whatever, and then you can sit there and you kind of riff off what the other speakers are doing, and bam, that person, if they're smart and they're recording it, they have an SEO strategy for the next 6 months, probably based on what the 5 people up on the stage said, right? And so that, to me, a site audit clinic is a great example of what if Clubhouse can have that, or and I was actually thinking about that because, I've recently invested in a little better camera and some lighting and stuff like that. And I want to start to, do some more topical stuff, but I don't necessarily want to write it, right? And so,
video is much easier. It's much easier than writing, huh?
US SEO conspiracies or something like that. I can be SEO conspiracy /US or US Belgium. No, just kidding. But the idea is that you have, and I want to use you as a great example of someone who has, I think, in my perspective, done a great job of setting up your brand and the way that you have different things that you talk about in different formats and stuff. And it's something that I would aspire to do, as I get more time, but also because, like we've been talking about, it's easier than writing. So
that's the thing. It's amazing how sudden I will okay, you see it happening, so you switch, and this whole SEO 2010 versus SEO 2020 or 2030 discussion is really interesting. You said at the beginning, you only use mostly the word search with caps, okay? Capital S. Because and it's okay. If you're stuck into SEO version 2010, and good for you, if that's what you want. But others have a more wide angle type of perspective, and they care about search, especially when you have a little bit of marketing and you tend to widen your because search people. I wish it was still 2010. I wish it was still a model where free Google traffic, because it was really free, not that expensive. Keyword. You rank on that keyword, then you have a CTR, and then you have money. 100%. That's what it was. I'm not Nostradamus. I don't guess the future, but I can see that the field of search has exploded. The customer journey is not what it was in 2010, that's for sure. So now I am okay with SEOs who still work like it's 2010, but it's also most definitely a ever-changing landscape. So how do you put together how do you put together those very different mindsets of people who are still stuck into this 2010 mindset and the ones who see the field of search exploding?
Yeah, well, I think one of the problems that is the elephant in the room is Google, and they have done a great job in coming to us and helping us with access to tools and guiding us with micro formatting opportunities. And they've implemented, like these micro formatting opportunities, and they're creating this great sort of bait, like, oh, wow, how did those people, FAQ schema, right? You see it in a SERP, and wow, you know what, that's really cool. But, the amount of successful stories of that kind of implementation are still very much muddied by what's going on in the SERPs, right? And that is right now, if we just use search engine optimization as an example, I've started, even though I am a judge at awards, I've started to have more of a disdain for awards and also for pay to play type opportunities. And Clutch is a great example, right? And I'm sorry, it's not personal. I hate, the opportunity that Clutch presents to people to create this sort of aura of being a great agency simply because they've paid Clutch to go through the process of interviews and all that stuff like that, right? So, and then if you search SEO plus any city, Clutch is going to come up, and then now Google even says, here's an example. Oh, did you mean to search best SEOs in whatever city? And they have like 10 randomly people that they've chosen as the best SEOs. And guess where that's from? The Clutch list, right? So it's like, there's another example, and two of my clients are in software. One is direct B2B and one is education software. And we're both basically reliant on participating with G2 Crowd and Capterra, right? Because they own all the software rankings, right? Because they've created these pages that show, oh, these are the 10 best software. And they're like the old school directories. You remember how directories were so important because it would help Google to identify, hey, this belongs in this, and especially for software, which continues to be a big problem now today for Google in determining the word software in a search, right? It's a huge semantic problem for them. But so they're reliant on like G2 Crowd and Capterra. No problem. I know someone, a great SEO, Jory, that works at G2 Crowd. So I'm not hating the players. But in this case, they've lucked into this game that exists now with SEO, right? And that's enabled by Google, right? So as much as they're telling us, go do this, this, and this, and you'll rank well, they're extremely susceptible in certain niches, especially software, to sites that will dominate. And they've done a good job of finally pushing Wikipedia down a little bit, depending on the search. But now they've got other problems, right? And so to me, that's one of the big issues that we have in SEO nowadays, is that we're all fighting a different fight, right? And somebody might have a completely different perspective and point of view about Google if they're in software, or maybe if they're selling cars and they see Google starting to do more and more stuff around auto sales through the Google search page, basically, and that's been something that's been going on and people have been bitching out about for years, right? Is Google sort of stealing traffic and they've done a good job over the years at backing off on some of their aggression on some of those things. But it's still like right now, 20 years in or whatever, we're trying to be ethical, or a lot of us are, right? And at the same time, we're facing people that are cheating or people that are completely, getting an extra boost because of the nature of the format of their site.
Wow, there's a lot to unpack here. There's a lot to unpack, but to start with the end, I guess it depends would be the favorite answer here. Just because you are right, Google is the elephant in the room, but to broaden the perspective, is Google the search engine that was built in 1990 whatever that came out in 96 the end game here, or even the mobile version of that search engine, or is more? I was amazed. Google Discover started out in 2018, and SEOs just start to discover Google Discover in end of 2020. I'm like, guys, it's been out for a while. Yeah, but yeah, sure, but you should at least know that it's there and it exists. I'm not talking about taking advantage of it, but
Hey, they just put it in the search console. Why were we supposed to know about it before, man? Come on.
Exactly. That's what it was. They all came out. Oh, here's this thing. So now it's not the future. I remember my first public talk. It was called Google Now back then, and it was a SEO crowd, and they all had eyes like in a Tex Avery cartoon. You know, they were eyes shoving out of their head because they could not believe the story I was telling. Well, guess what? It's happening. Predictive search, basically. Pushing out results, pushing out relevant content before you search. And it's so invisible that users don't even understand that it's there are algorithms pushing out those little nuggets up there. I think it's more the future. I think voice is the future. If augmented reality screens, glasses, lenses, or chip in the brain, or if you have a little ball on top of your head, I don't know. I don't know how it's going to shape out, but all I know is we're going towards that. That's the keyboard, those things would be ancient and will disappear because that's the way it is. So if I started talking about it in 2013 and we're almost 10 years later, it's not science fiction anymore. I didn't talk about it before Google Now came out. I just was aware that it started, and I read and I could see that it was happening. But again, I'm no visionary. I just analyze what's going on. So now the question I'm asking to everyone is always, okay, do you want to talk to Google past, or do you want to talk to what's happening today and tomorrow? Basically, I think it comes down to the old way is not gone. Google is still going strong and ranking in the top 3 on the old version of the search engine. Still works, brings a lot of results, but I don't see it as the end game anymore. So I think it's when you are talking about SEO, social comes in. And I was thinking, that was at the same time then all those companies got rid of the SEO in the name. So maybe, is it search or is it SEO? What are we talking about here? Because that's I feel like there's 2 different crowds. Those are the old school SEOs who stay within SEO, just optimize for Google, and then you have all those opportunities that cross with marketing and branding, and it's intricate. It's difficult, especially when you go on to higher levels with bigger companies. The other day, sign up a new client, and my assistant, who is used to do, she does all the more automated stuff, and she was like, "Oh, this website buys a lot of links." I'm like, "No, you can get those links without buying them. you just do public relations, press relations, right? And you can get those links. The same. Yeah. Okay, sure. I didn't know. Yeah, because she was so used of the SEO way. She's so used of the SEO way to do things, and she didn't have this perspective of you can get links without buying them. So it's pretty symptomatic. And I think if you look at, you see all those press websites in Majestic or whatever, you're like, hey, they spend a lot of money buying links. Well, guess what? There's another way. and I don't, buy links, don't buy links. Whatever you do, you still craft a scenario to get the links. And I think Google is very much guilty of splitting the SEO world, especially in the US. I see or in English, I see a negative vibe coming in because of Google, because Google vouches for certain SEOs. Say, okay, this guy is legit. This person even no, why? because you like them? No, makes no sense. So you're right. Google is the elephant in the room, but it's more than the search engine. It's even the way they communicate, the way they split the SEO industry, and the way the future of Google is most definitely not the search engine that SEOs used to love. Sorry,
Well,
guys.
and here's an example too, the YMYL stuff, right? So they have arbitrarily decided what industries are your money or your life. But who's to say that an SEO software doesn't fall under that, right? Because if a company is reliant on a software to grow and pay all of its employees and support, everyone from the top down, then you could argue that an SEO software is a YMYL type of site, right?
Sure.
And they're putting different filters and so forth towards these allegedly, more sensitive type of sites. But this is, speaking of objective versus subjective, right? And so there's that with the combination of, in my opinion, too much trust in their AI that is forming now these issues, right? That are only going to, I think, become greater, especially for people that aren't sort of blessed in a your money or your life, or not blessed, and they have to climb a much higher hill if they're deemed as being a your money or your life type of site, right? Like, just think of all the thousands of different nutrients and natural medicines and so forth that constantly are getting attacked by big pharma and so forth. It's very easy to stomp on, something that could be pretty good and useful for your money or your life, right? If either you're a competitor or if, the site is deemed to not have the same kind of medical citations and connectivity from a web perspective as maybe, Amgen or some other big pharma site, right? So that's, to me, a big problem too, is this arbitrary YMYL thing that, is only being applied to a certain part of the ecosystem, and then everyone else is sort of in the wild, as it were, with sort of less stringent rules set, right? I mean, that's, if you wanted to boil down YMYL, it's basically created a separate set of rules for sites that they deem have to do with your money or your life, which, if I wanted to argue, well, it could be any site, right? I mean,
that's very symptomatic, and you're right to talk about that, but I think it's overall, and you said it very quickly, they put too much trust. I think too early is the word. They got very excited about this machine learning toys, but there was not the time. And as a result, well, guess what? You're right. It's clear cut. There's no nuance anymore. There's no shades of gray. It's binary. But as a Frenchman, I can only vouch my voice against just enter which wine to drink with red meat. Okay, who are you to put on position 0 this website that says you need to drink this wine, this wine, this wine? Okay, let's talk about it. No, it doesn't. It's not. Dixon Jones always used the term, the analogy. Okay, how to tie a bow tie, or that's easy. Yeah, put someone on position 0, or a tutorial or video or whatever. That's maybe some extremists of bow tying will argue, but most people will be fine with the results. Now, when it comes to nuance, that's beyond money and health. It's all across the board. As a result, Jeff Dean and Ben Gomez out. Prabhakar Raghavan came in about a year ago, and I believe this guy will be able to save Google. If he can't succeed, then it's a lost cause. because that guy is very skilled, and he's now heading search, voice, ads, and maps. Also, I think the whole ecosystem. But Google will be broken for a while. It will basically run through like a couple of years of core updates, permanent core updates, until he's figuring it out.
Because they can't go all Baidu or Naver and say, "Oh, we're just going to have the first 2 pages be paid," and then if they want, they could, though. Technically.
Well, if we go into the smartphone,
it's already there.
Is it really like the first page of results? I would argue that we need to redefine if the first page is really. I mean, on a computer, yes, it pays off to be maybe number 5 or 6 or 7 or whatever. But on mobile, if you're not top 2, okay, top 3, whatever. Are you really visible? It's pretty crowded it's pretty crowded, and we're not talking about big screens. Okay, we're talking about average mobile. But we got way sidetracked. But it's very interesting because see our passion SEOs freestyle and get sidetracked from the original topic. It illustrates how SEO works. And what I was saying about studies, okay, you take a right and you fit your answers will fit your questions, or you go left. What we do here, we talk, and it goes wherever it goes. I don't care, and I don't try to always bring it back to make your answers fit my questions. It's taking us where the conversation is heading. And I think it illustrates how SEO should approach. We don't talk about. We could talk about what we think, but mostly the conversation has been around what we know. Okay, we haven't theorized about what's happening in 10 or 20 years. It's pretty much what happened and what is happening now. So just to get back onto this conversation of. Is SEO legit? Is it here to stay? As long as people search, as long as people have questions, as long as people have problems and they need solutions, they are going to search. Will those of us who adapt will be there, either in text, in video, audio, image. I think that's pretty much the only 4 formats of content. Is it on Google? Is it on Clubhouse? Is it on, well, you can't really search on Clubhouse. Well, you haven't tried, but the search engine on Clubhouse is really funny. It's like they just put a feature there. Okay, yeah, they should.
So you can search like recorded Clubhouse events that.
No, there's nothing recorded. You can search whatever is happening live, but it doesn't work. It just does not work. It does not work. It's stupid. And it's not the first one, but
search is hard.
Search is definitely very hard. So now, what I think is the real underlying question here. You want to take this?
No. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm just turning off the ring.
It's the time. Usually when I start with Bill, it's always in the morning. So it always has the same spammy calls at the same time. So it's pretty much the time now for the spammy calls. But yeah, the underlying question here is if we wanted to first answer that question, search. Okay, SEOs, but search engine optimization. I think we're beyond that. It's more about search in general. Is it here to stay? I don't think you can argue that. I don't know if anybody can argue against the fact that search has always been and will always been here.
Until we become the Borg.
Until
and then we instantly know everything that everyone else knows, then we should be good to go then. But until then, I think the search is here, right?
something
And in
would.
so many different ways. And one of the little areas that was part of Sempo was site search, or internal search appliances. And that's an area when I was working with Brulant, which became Rosetta, and we were doing a lot of WebSphere Commerce, IBM stuff. We started working with the internal search, the different applications that you could apply. And some of them already, 10, 12 years ago were way ahead of others, right?
Sure.
And you could kind of compare the problems that internal search appliances have had. And if you know at all, if you've done any sort of site builds where the internal search appliance has to come into play, and just imagine like Google and the problems that their engineers have, right? Because at one point I remember it was pretty clear to a lot of us sooner than it finally became clear to everyone that you don't use the meta keywords tag. But there are some internal search appliances that require that tag in order to be able to work effectively, right? So
Very true.
it's an example of where SEO can overlay with other, issues and continue, because we're still not perfect. As websites still aren't perfect, search still isn't perfect either internally or externally, right? And that's why it also became an issue that Google had to tackle and say, hey, stop letting us index your search results pages, because our crawler loves to pretend it's a human, and that was their third reason to stop, I think, indexing search results. But, these things tie together. And that's why search in general will continue to exist, because we're at the technical and the content level 100%, right? Linking, it's interesting, right? And there's certainly an argument that Google could get rid of the linkscape, but there's some great arguments that say that they would completely break if they did, right? And so to me, if we want to hypothesize of some ways that search could evolve, links is definitely, I think, probably, other than the continual technical improvements in ways that Google's trying to get us to microformat stuff, they have to be fighting being so reliant on links, because they have to see, what's happening there, I think.
They did. You know where they got rid of links? Discover. The new backlink is engagement. You gotta get it clicked. If on Android phones, especially I think what they're working on, but the fact that engagement replaced the good old backlink and PageRank on Android phones and on Google Discover.
Now you're getting into one of those theories or conspiracy theories that people get pissed about, in regards to, because there's some SEOs that say CTR in the regular SERPs is a ranking factor, right?
No. I said for Google Discover.
I know,
and that's exactly. Yeah, they didn't read the
example of where. Oh, wow, CTR. Even I think I caught myself, a few years back or whatever, wondering and trying to do some research around, some of our better click-through rates that we seem to have being reported in Search Console. And that's the problem, right? Is you're getting the Google refined data of your impressions and clicks to form your CTR from, and that's not even matching what's in Google Analytics. So, this is just a great example of a nutshell type of a problem.
You're right. Because I remember I did this like SEO 2010 versus SEO 2020. The last line was like backlinks is replaced by engagement. And if you take out the Google Discover in the title, it could just be raw. It's okay, SEO 2010 versus SEO 2020. No, SEO 20 / Google Discover. So very easy to interpret what I said in a general statement. Yeah, very interesting what you just said. So now let's touch upon one last thing, because we're running on 2 hours now.
Yeah.
Okay. Sempo, the Digital Association, what is it, DA?
Yeah, Digital Analytics Association.
Okay.
which
So
is not even search, but
yes, that's what
closest we could get.
that's what I'm getting into is within the even within digital marketing, not even going into digital, okay, just digital marketing. The SEO has always been the black sheep of the family, or the the scary one, right? In this whole ecosystem. Um, and it's a little bit changing now. It's a little bit evolving, or I don't know how you say it, but I see people getting more aware. I guess it's a natural trend. It's been 20 years, so it's natural that more and more people are aware of the value of SEO. But if the head of those big agencies, I'm talking about marketing in general or digital marketing agencies, don't take SEO seriously, do you think, even talking about advertising agencies and that they don't want SEO? I don't think they do.
It's all the bad past, right? I mean, there's so many times that people have been screwed.
Yeah.
I think I like to use the analogy because it's actually very personal to me. But sometimes I'll go like after soccer, we'll go to brunch, and you know, 5, 6 of us are there. A couple guys will order a Bloody Mary, and I'll have a Patron Reposado, just a shot with a beer. It's the same thing,
Yeah.
but whoa, you're drinking tequila at noon, man? What the whoa, guy? It's like you're having a Bloody Mary that probably has more vodka in it than my
Yes.
tequila. But that's kind of like we're the SEOs, the ones that drink the tequila instead of the Bloody Mary, right? In a way. It's the same thing.
I I have a funny story about that. It was not with tequila; it was with absinthe. That I got back from Prague, and I was very hangover, and the party started, and it was during COVID, so it was a Zoom party. I was like, okay, I get to get back in the game. I took a little bit of absinthe, like a little shot, just the cap, okay? And people were like, oh my God. I'm like, look at you. You're already wasted. They're like, why are you judging? I'm just catching up, okay? I'm just taking a
But
shortcut.
we are the SEOs are the ones that drink tequila instead of Bloody Marys. Like historically, like 20 years in, we're still a little bit seen as bohemian. And granted, it's a deserved status because a lot of our, you know, experts don't really like have, you know, master's degrees in marketing and have had to sort of learn, like me, you know, I learned SEO, then I went back to get a marketing degree so that I could better tie it in with what everyone else is talking about, right? So we have a tendency also to, I think, undersell or incorrectly sell SEO's values, right? Like where we think, oh, we'll get the rankings and we'll get this and that. We just need to focus on how many more sales, right? And when we're selling it up, you know, how many more leads and how many more conversions, right? And there's, I think, partially that's the problem, that we're still growing, right, as a collective. And this next generation of SEOs, I think, is more and more so that they have, you know, a marketing education, and that they've got a large amount of both current and past, you know, writings that they can learn from. But we're still facing the, you know, the SEO drinks tequila at brunch, I think, a little bit, right? And that's something that will continue to change the more that good, smart, effective SEOs work together with, you know, people. And that's, and the problem too, and this is where I think is a whole, we can't talk about it because we're about to wrap up, but, you know, the agency-ification, you know, charge $300 an hour blended, and then get, you know, people that are doing most of the work for $25 an hour. And then you charge your executives, cost $1,500 an hour for the meetings they're in. And it's just become this thing that's grown very bloated in the last 15 years. And that as a consultant, have to admit that I'm seeing and happy about the fact that I'm seeing more bigger brands thinking, wait, do we really need to spend this much money on SEO with an agency when we could build it in-house or use consultants in combination, right? So that's where, and again, there's the tequila at brunch combination with the past, potentially charlatan SEO that said $5,000 and they build them a couple links or whatever and maybe got them a couple rankings which equated to no traffic. We're fighting that still, even now, 21 years later or whatever.
20 years is long and short at the same time.
Yeah,
it's we're just getting started. So maybe, just maybe, yes, we are the dinosaurs of this generation of people who focused on that search engine that was built in the 90s. It's up to Google if the technology evolves and if there is a way they are able to integrate. Parag Bakar, if you hear us, do a good job and integrate everything in a way that will be future-proof. We'll see. I'm definitely very positive about the future of search because it's not going anywhere. We're not going to get into this whole agency thing because that's a whole new video for another day, just because of time. If we get into it. I
did some presentations at PubCon about agency models and stuff, so we can do that as a topic one time if you want.
Yeah, most definitely, because that's very interesting and maybe help people.
I had like 3 different agency models you could consider. It's about 3 years ago that I did those presentations, so they're still relevant.
Because you do have some good SEO agencies, for sure. Is size the enemy?
I don't know. Some are.
Some what I call the boutique, the smaller ones, I guess. But is growth the enemy? I mean, can you refuse like the $1 million client? But if you take it,
the boutique ones are great. Don't get me wrong. I think this big problem is more the higher end agencies that have just turned it into a revenue stream. That's a big issue. I think.
It's just a math issue. Okay, you are one single SEO, and you have minutes per week to work on the client. The math doesn't. If you have less,
to outsource something.
If you have less than 4 hours, how can you get results? How can you do anything? It's just not. There's no time. So but you automated the time. Okay, fine. So what do you need a SEO for if you just have nothing against the press the button SEO? Just overvalue. If you overvalue it, and as a judge, all those agencies that are very proud of the AI but whatever. For another day, because if we get into that this thing. It's a rabbit hole. We won't get out. So to get out,
you hopefully get a couple of episodes out of this one.
Exactly. No. I'm all in. It's just one. It's just gonna be one. I don't think I can cut it out in different pieces. Well, we'll take out some nuggets, but I think it's one piece.
All right.
One mistake I did was maybe to like you did is go in there a little more sure, it'll be fun. And when you have people in fun who are calculated and who have an agenda, of course you will lose because you're not prepared, and that's what happened with me. And that's why I didn't last very long, because I was not in my world and I was not about to get into politics, and also because I think my personal brand is bigger than SEO Camp. Actually, like I draw more people. My voice is bigger than theirs, and so on. So I can say, hey, ciao. I don't need you. You don't need me. But now
it's probably better for the health of if there's both, right? Or more, even more. Like the
True.
more well-known entities that are about SEO, the greater SEO grows, right? So.
Exactly. But you need balance and you need diversity. And that's also why I wanted to start SEO Conspiracy, because the needle was going way too much into the Google way of saying things. And I was like, hey, we need to put back the needle a little bit. At least my voice. I don't say I'm always right, but at least I can. We can tell different story, and the feedback I get from people is telling me that I need to invest more into SEO Conspiracy, because they are looking for this other voice, looking for this, because they know that there's something shady. So going to end up the talk on the tactical score sheet, or whatever you want to call it, we are doing this. We're doing this for real. I think it will be very beneficial, and we don't care. We don't need to be under the shepherd's hat. Nobody is anyway. So
it's a kind of document that it's going to be evergreen, obviously, because of the nature of it, but it can then grow too based on it being almost like an open source, because people will, if we have an owner of the document, people can submit, and once they see the format, okay, this is the tactic, this is the risk rating, right? Then people can submit more tactics and risk ratings that could be, judged as, and then we could, without making too much work out of it, I think it could grow into something and then be updated quarterly and annotated as such, right? Some things will change faster than quarterly in search, but I think quarterly is probably fast enough. But that would be a fun thing to do, I think, a good project. And it would get us towards at least showing that, because you could just see like someday the Congress saying, wow, look at this whole industry. Like, and the worst thing about it is that without standards and without any of this stuff, they're going to be relying on whatever experts, that they pick to tell them which the 3 best wines are, right?
Sure.
So there you go, and then we're at the mercy of whoever happens to speak to Congress. So I think it's better if we try to preemptively, set up something.
That's a very good point, because they haven't figured it out, but they will, because it's a lot of money.
And who knows who'll teach them.
I can see it. I can see it happening. Like one congressman will need to clean up his search results, and he's gonna, hey, look, I found this guy who can manipulate Google. We said Google dominates the world.
It's going to be. We talked about him last time, but who would suddenly somehow be the guy that's standing in front of Congress?
Yeah, I can see him most definitely in front of Congress for sure, and that would not be the whole story. But you're right. Maybe be proactive, and we need to start from somewhere for sure. And this elementary piece of content could be the starting point. But like you said, the networking, the who is the value of an SEO as much as his or her skills anyway. So I don't know. We'll see from there. But let's start somewhere. That's all there is to it, I guess. And thank you, Monsieur Chris, for this very long talk. But it was, I think it was good to get back to put down on video the history of Sempo, and so people know where we come from, because that's most definitely a big, huge part of this industry, and getting people aware that, yeah, some people tried. If you have this idea of starting a group of people talking about SEO with big ambitions, well, they tried. So learn from that history.
Well, c'était complètement, pour moi, le meilleur moment que je pourrais commencer la semaine.
I translate it. I'll translate this French.
A big conversation with you is a great way to start the week, I think.
Thank you.
And I appreciate it. And we'll talk again soon, mon ami.
Yes.
Long live SEO, right?
Long live SEO.